Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the motion for the resolution to approve the draft amendment to value-added tax, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, anything to the benefit of the constituency of ancillary canneries, and in particular, Mr. Speaker, tourism, will undoubtedly get my support. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in a very long time, we no longer have to worry about espousing our views, our hopes and aspirations. The last time that was done, Mr. Speaker, ideas were taken from the community and are now operated by individuals who are responsible for discharging that responsibility, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there were community meetings in Jackman, Mr. Speaker, and a certain suggestion was made to the then Member of Parliament. Shortly before the election, Mr. Speaker, there was someone else operating that particular endeavor. Today, Mr. Speaker, we now know who is the true owner of that facility, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we get ready to celebrate Christmas, I will also, Mr. Speaker, spend some time on the Rosary River, Mr. Speaker, identifying what has happened to a lot of the instruments, a lot of the equipment that was purchased, Mr. Speaker, for the community that is now being used by the former Member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 98% of the tourists who come to St. Lucia pass through the constituency of ancillary canneries. The Member of Parliament was the Minister of Tourism, Mr. Speaker. If you ask anyone in ancillary canneries, Mr. Speaker, what was done to improve the likelihood that the tourists would stop in ancillary canneries, not just to use the bathroom, Mr. Speaker, for other experiences, Mr. Speaker, it'll be very hard to find, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the current Minister of Tourism, Mr. Speaker, for all the hard work that he's put in, Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of ancillary canneries, Mr. Speaker. It's only a few days ago, Mr. Speaker, we had some community meetings, and all of the loose talk about who win and who don't win yet, Mr. Speaker. Tanto. There are roads, Mr. Speaker, where we know monies have left the Treasury, Mr. Speaker. And if you go down there today, Mr. Speaker, they were never done. But tanto, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we get ready to celebrate the Christmas season, Mr. Speaker, I would like us, Mr. Speaker, to do so and remember its deeper meaning. To reach out, Mr. Speaker, to those who need. To forgive like I have forgiven, Mr. Speaker. To embrace the values of kindness, generosity, and peace, Mr. Speaker. And whilst we celebrate the progress we've made, Mr. Speaker, and I know the member for Grosley read out a small list of what is done, I will follow him, Mr. Speaker, in furtherance to the importance of tourism and community tourism. With immediacy, Mr. Speaker, we went ahead and did the Vanna Venus Ancillary Link Road, Mr. Speaker. And that was done, Mr. Speaker, to drive the tourism through the communities, Mr. Speaker. So it doesn't just go from the main road, but it goes into the valleys, Mr. Speaker. We revamped the fish fry, Mr. Speaker. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, it existed before, but was left in ruin, Mr. Speaker. But we've done that. Rehabilitated the ancillary jetty, Mr. Speaker. We built a bridge in Montciso, Mr. Speaker. We are on another bridge now in ancillary, Mr. Speaker. We did a crossing in Delago, Mr. Speaker. We have just received word of a €300,000 grant for the mangrove project in Ancillary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we were promised an ambulance. Monies were raised. Activities were held. Today, Mr. Speaker, it is only because of this current Prime Minister that Ancillary Canneries will be the host or the home of a sub-fire station, which includes, Mr. Speaker, an ambulance and appliances, Mr. Speaker. Very shortly, Mr. Speaker, we will commence the rehabilitation of the Canneries jetty, Mr. Speaker. Very shortly, Mr. Speaker, we will open the Canneries restaurant and market, Mr. Speaker. Very shortly, Mr. Speaker, we will commence the revamped Creole port in Canneries, Mr. Speaker. Very shortly, Mr. Speaker, and with the help of the Minister of Sports, we will begin work on the rehabilitation of the Canneries field, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you go down to Canaries today, Mr. Speaker, you will now be able to commute all the way to the waterfall, Mr. Speaker. That was never the case until very recently. Today, if you go today, Mr. Speaker, that is happening. And all of that is happening, Mr. Speaker, because we want to drive the benefits of community tourism to the communities. Hopefully, Mr. Speaker, in January, I will be receiving an underwater sculpture park, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and a lay-by facility in Canaries. Previous to that, Mr. Speaker, we amended the Agricultural Incentives Act to allow us, for the first time, to collect the revenues of what's taking place in the territorial waters of ancillary Canaries, Mr. Speaker. All of that, Mr. Speaker, with no fuss, no excitement, but the eye on the prize, Mr. Speaker. And I will be, Mr. Speaker, defending my victory come January. I will be protecting my victory, Mr. Speaker. I will be protecting my victory. Mr. Speaker, may the light of Christmas guide us into a new year with purpose and promise. May we remember, Mr. Speaker, that no matter the challenges we face as a constituency, the strength of our community and our shared humanity, and the government, Mr. Speaker, led by the member for Castries East, will always, Mr. Speaker, lead ancillary Canaries forward, Mr. Speaker. From my family to the families of ancillary Canaries, I wish them all, Mr. Speaker, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let us move, Mr. Speaker, into the future with gratitude, determination, and faith in what we could achieve together. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.